we know that Viola Davis is returning to play Amanda Waller in the new DCU. This isn't news because we have already heard that Waller is going to be a new TV show that's going to be sort of like Peacemaker season 1.5 or 2.5, depending on where it releases, but it's going to be. And there's going to be some crossover of characters between the ones we saw in Peacemaker and the ones we even maybe saw in the Suicide Squad that James Gunn directed. So we've known for a while that Viola Davis isn't going anywhere. She's going to continue playing this character. You mentioned that to me before before we started doing this that it seems like Amanda Waller is going to be like the DCU's answer to Nick Fury, and I can sort of understand where you're coming from because we've already sort of seen her in that role. Like at the end of Black Adam, she kind of has this like holographic video call with Black Adam saying, "You better stay in conduct, or I'm gonna have some people that I know, some very influential friends, come take care of the problem." And then, of course, Henry Cavill Superman's like, "We need to talk." So she's
Right.
sort of that Nick Fury-ish character. We have already seen her lieutenants show up like at the end of Shazam: Fear of the Gods to recruit Shazam into the Justice Society. In Black Adam, we know that she was involved with the Justice Society. It seems like um, starting with the Suicide Squad, Amanda Waller's role in the DCEU at the time, and maybe moving forward in the DCU is much more central, less of a this is Task Force X kind of doing its thing in the corner. But Amanda Waller is she's got much more influence in the larger story of at least
Better hands and everything.
the DCU on Earth. Like I don't know about the cosmic side of things. So, what do you think about this idea that now Amanda Waller is coming back? Is the character Amanda Waller is going to be heavily involved, and Viola Davis is playing the character, and it's not just to be like this, undercover shady, leader of this team like Task Force X, like Suicide Squad, but she's gonna be way, way more. She's gonna be like Nick Fury, who depending on what time you find him in the MCU, he's either leading Shield or he's kind of doing his solo thing, or he's up in space building a new Earth Defense Space Station. Nick
Yeah.
Fury's all over the place. What's consistent is that he is seems to be always the person who has the answers, and he seems to be the person who always knows more than anybody else in this comic book universe. So, is that what Viola Davis, Amanda Waller are going to be now for the DCU?
It seems like they're teasing that. Now, obviously, once it starts to get going, it could maybe not be that, but it's already confirmed that she's gonna be in Creature Commandos. It's confirmed she's obviously getting her own show, and I also heard rumors that she was gonna be in Superman Legacy, but that's kind of more rickety, so let's
I
not
would
take that
imagine
with a
that's
grain of
not that
salt.
difficult to do, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe shooting a couple of scenes while she's shooting like 500 other things. Like you might as well.
Right, right. But
Yeah,
that's like in terms of rumors, take it with a grain of salt because who knows? It hasn't been confirmed by James Gunn on Twitter yet, so it's totally up in the air. But I feel like that could be sort of like the uniting thing because the thing
yeah.
that DC always had over Marvel, in my personal opinion, is they did standalone stories really well. Like Aquaman was a huge hit that didn't connect to anything.
In
Wonder
fact,
Woman was
if
a huge
if
hit.
anything, Aquaman contradicted like the depiction of Aquaman in Justice League in several ways.
Yeah,
Because like Mira's parents are deceased in Justice League. If you especially watch the Snyder cut, and in Aquaman, Mira's dad like is played by Dolph Lundgren. He's alive and
yeah,
well. So like, and then the costumes are totally different. So
yeah.
yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah.
So it and then like Wonder Woman was a prequel, so we didn't really see anything of that.
Kinda lived on its own,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's like
Other than that one
DC's
photo that
the
keeps
one
popping
photo,
up.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just DC is so
Even that
great
we had 2
at
versions of, like, the first version
yeah,
of
the
that
Crime
photo was very
War one,
different.
yeah, where she's holding
Yeah.
the heads.
Before
That
the
was
before
crazy.
they actually, like, cast the people for the movie and they were like, "Let's do this photo again," and it's gonna be a PG-13 movie, we're not doing rated R here.
Yeah. So I feel like
Yeah,
DC does standalone stories very well. So I feel like James Gunn knows this. I mean, he's a pretty smart guy. He has
yeah.
this universe at his disposal. So obviously he knows what he's doing to an extent. So I feel like, okay, I know what DC's good at. They're good at standalone stories, whether that be just the Nolan verse or just the Burton verse or just like standalone stories that maybe have sequels, and that's what we're gonna do. However, for the people that want the interconnectivity like the MCU, and to maybe possibly please all the other executives that want, Marvel's numbers. uh, okay, let's have this character that's kind of like this Marvel character that's very popular, played by another beloved actor, and have sort of that interconnecting tissue for the people that want that, for the people that want the cinematic universe part of the DC cinematic universe.
Right.
So I think that that would be good for that. And even then, if you don't really care, then it's like it's going to be a cameo at best, and if you really don't care about Amanda Waller, don't watch her show. It's not going to be, it's like kind of what Phil Coulson was at the beginning as well in
Yeah.
phase one. So I think it's a win-win in a way. Like, okay, cool, we get this thing that's kind of like Marvel if people want that. And if people don't, well, don't watch the show, and cameos are just cameos. So I
Yeah.
feel like it's definitely a win-win situation if this is what they're going for with Amanda Waller's character.
Yeah, yeah, and look, although like with Phil Coulson and Amanda Waller, you get two very different reactions from most audience members when they show up on screen. I was like, Phil Coulson's like, oh yeah, I feel at home again. Like this is all the way back to phase one of Marvel. Like I remember him showing up in
Oh yeah.
the second Iron Man movie or like the Thor movie. And like, and then I'm a big fan of the Agents of Shield show. But like with Amanda Waller, like, testament to Viola Davis, like playing this very absolutely detestable character,
Oh yeah.
like, just being that person whenever she shows up on screen that you don't want to, you're like, oh no, somebody's gonna
She's the
die,
wall
or like,
for a reason.
yeah, it's
Um, yeah.
but I appreciate that they're going in this direction, and it's not. Here's the thing: like a lot of people criticize the DCU and like how, like, they're getting rid of, or have gotten rid of, or recast, to put it nicely, Henry Cavill, and then Ben Affleck's no longer continuing on with the role, even though it seems like he in recent years he was more open to coming back with his recent. It feels like since he said he was no longer Batman, he's done more Batman stuff than he did before he said he was no
Right.
longer Batman. And but having said all of that, like I think there's one thing about the old DCEU that was always a problem, which was that the continuity between the movies was always a little shaky. Like it never, and then it didn't have quite the connective tissue even in its heyday, and that had a lot to do with the fact that they kept changing directions, and then the creative masterminds behind the scenes kept changing. And creative would be like a loose way to describe them, because it was just like a bunch of executives at Warner Brothers, and they kept rotating in and out because Warner Brothers
Yeah.
changed ownership like three times over the course of the DCU's run. And Zack Snyder at one point was like this creative lead, and then they shuffled him out around the Justice League debacle, and then since then when they brought in Walter Hamada, even he didn't have full control until a couple of years into his reign, and even then he had other people he had to run everything by. However, the one thing he did start doing well was that, Amanda Waller was becoming that connective tissue. Like I mentioned, the post credit scene in Shazam and Black Adam, the post credit scene in Shazam: Fear of the Gods, even her appearances in Peacemaker. Like it felt like they were starting to, kind of create this infrastructure in the background, that these stories are connected. There's character crossovers happening here in ways that aren't dominating each individual project, but they're establishing like these loose threads that connect them together into a larger web, if you will. So I do appreciate that they're taking that element, which I think is an important part of when you're building an interconnected universe, to have that be there. And that's something that, of course, Nick Fury was a big part of that early on in Marvel. Now, there's other ways that they're connected, like whether it's, Bruce Banner, played by Mark Ruffalo, showing up in post-credit scene of Shang-Chi, um,
Yeah.
or, other characters like that, like Daredevil crossing over into She-Hulk, things of that nature, or even the Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor: Love and Thunder for the first act of that movie. So, but, I'm sure those were all like very neatly planned out cameos that Marvel has put together and planned out probably years before we got to see them on screen. I'm glad we're finally going to start to see that level of consistency, planning, and precision from the DC universe as well. And to complement the DCEU, they were already on their way to doing this. So this is one of those things where James Gunn is saying, "Hey, you guys had it right. We're just going to keep on doing it." except now the stuff that you saw before Future Commandos and Superman Legacy isn't quite canon. But like, hey, Viola Davis is still Amanda Waller. Like we have a Rick Flag Senior apparently. I don't know where Rick Flag fits into the picture, or if
Right.
Joel Kinnaman's Rick Flag even existed in the new canon. Because if she's part of, like, this is something that bothers me, is that if she is part of the new Future Commandos show, I used to think that Future Commandos would take place in the past, but apparently it's not, because if Amanda Waller's in it and Steve the Agee's in it, and his character, of course, is also like lives in the present day, been with Peacemaker on his team, and a bit on Amanda Waller's team. So there's questions still yet to be answered. But the one thing we do know is that Viola Davis is coming back, and she's going to be in the Waller TV series, and probably many of the movies and other TV shows, to kind of be that connective tissue between all these new projects. And to say that they basically almost killed her off like twice in the first Suicide Squad movie. Like, you
Yeah.
know, so like, yeah, the Amanda Waller character, if she didn't go down in the first movie, like where she should have died at least in two different places,
Oh,
in
yeah.
the story. I don't think she's gonna be going anywhere anytime soon. So guys, let us
Oh,
know in the
yeah.
comments below what you think about the DCU's answer to Marvel's Nick Fury. And it's going to be played by, of course, the lovely Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. She's going to be back in the TV form as well as in the movies. And James Gunn, I'm sure, is excited to have her play in his DC sandbox for years and years to come. So tell us what you think about that. Like and subscribe, and of course, leave your comment down below. And we'll be back here with more DC news in the coming days and weeks and months and years, hopefully.